Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and this is part 2 of the Flappy Bird tutorial. Really quickly, before we move on, I am going to save my scene. Please do not forget to save your scenes as you go. I'm going to call this main. I should be better about, reminding you to save scenes. Now, some of you may be noticing that my project menu is a little different than normal, and the only reason for that is because I just kind of like using this view a little bit more, and to me it seems a little less confusing. But it's really just the same thing. All I did was I just clicked that and changed it. Let's do scenes. I'm going to organize my files a little bit here. All I did was click this and then change it to a 1-column layout as opposed to a 2-column layout. That's the 2-column we're used to. That's the 1-column. All right, so I have my scenes folder. I'm going to drop my main scene in there, and then I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this Sprites and drop that in here. Now, while I'm in here, I have another folder that I'm probably going to want to build just because I know we're about to get into some animation stuff. I'm going to create an animations folder. All right, and we're not going to have anything in that yet. Okay, so let's talk about the bird for a second. The bird is our main character of the game, and the bird is, if we take a look, actually it looks better in this view. If we look at the bird, it's actually a sprite that has 4 different pictures in it, right? Most characters, especially as we get more into more complicated games, most character sheets are going to look like this. They're going to have multiple instances of that character just in different positions. Now, this bird animation is extremely easy. It's just going to rotate, flip, 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 all the way through as it's flying through the air. So that's why we're starting with this one. But this is what your sprite sheet is going to look like whenever you bring in a character with with any kind of animations. So here's what we want to do. Let's go to pixels per unit. We'll change it to 16. We'll turn off our filter, of course. Now, we're not done yet because what we want to do is change this sprite mode from single to multiple, because there are multiple pictures inside of this sprite and we want to separate them in some way. So I'm going to click multiple. And then I want to go to the Sprite Editor. The Sprite Editor allows us, I'll click Apply. The Sprite Editor allows us to slice this image into the 4 individual sprites of our animation. Now, the nice thing is we know that this is 16 pixels across, this is 16 pixels across, this is 16, and that's 16. So what we can do is we can go up here to Slice, and we can slice by cell size. And we can do 16 by 16, because I know that that's exactly how big this individual picture is. We can do 16 by 16. And when I click Slice, notice that there's this really faint white line right here. There's one right here. There's one right here. That just shows me that now this is cut into 4 different individual pieces. So I'm going to hit Apply. And look what happened down here. I have bird 0, bird 1, bird 2, and bird 3. This sprite sheet has now been separated into 4 separate images, which is fantastic. That's what we're looking for. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is I want to select all 4 of these. And I want to drag these into the hierarchy. Now, this menu right here is essentially Unity saying, okay, I see what you're doing. You're dragging multiple sprites into the game at once, so you're probably going to want to turn these into an animation. And in this case, they are correct. We do want to turn this into an animation. So I actually want to call this animation fly.anim. Fly.anim. Anim is an animation file. And notice it's trying to put it in my sprites folder. And I don't want that. I want it to actually go in my animations folder. So I'm going to click Save. Now if I go to my animations folder, I have 2 new things. I have bird 0 and I have fly. So fly is the animation, bird 0 is the animation controller. It's essentially, it's called the state machine. So let's go ahead and double click on the fly animation. Actually, no, let's double click on bird 0 so we can see the animator. All right, this looks a little confusing, and I understand it's probably a little intimidating looking at this for the first time. But bear with me, because this is actually really, really easy. And believe me, doing animations this way is much better than doing them with code, than writing a script to handle the animation. So here's the way this works. This entry state here just means whenever this sprite pops into existence, whenever this animation pops into existence, we're going to go from here to whatever we're attached to. This right here is called a transition. So we're going to go from here to this. And the fly animation just flips through each of those sprites that I gave it, just periodically at a specific speed. Now, I know I'm going to want to slow this down, so under speed I'm going to do we'll do 0.5, so it's a little bit slower. Everything else we can just keep that there, that's fine. Now, honestly, at this point, our animation is done. That is us creating an animation. It gets more complicated when you want to move from different animation states, saying you want to move from an idle animation to a walking animation, and we're going to get into that in the next tutorial. Our animator is going to get a little more complicated, but I just wanted you guys to see this first and see how animations kind of work before we get into it. So let's go ahead and click play just to see what our animation looks like in the game. So there we go. Now it'll just keep doing that forever. It's just, all it's doing is going from sprite to sprite to sprite to sprite and then looping back. And it's doing that at a speed of 0.5. If I change that to 1, then we can see our speed speeds up. We can do it at 2, make it go really fast. We can change the animation speed to whatever we want. But me personally, I like 5. I think that's pretty decent speed. Alrighty, so we have our animation working. Let's do some physics with our bird. So we're going to need a circle collider because our bird is a nice circle. So I'm going to go ahead and add a physics 2D circle collider. And then we're going to need a rigid body, obviously. So a physics 2D rigid body. Alrighty. And I want to make sure that my mass is good, angular drag's good. My gravity scale, I'm going to keep that as 1 because I want my bird to fall, right? That's kind of the whole point of the game. I want my bird to fall down. So I'm going to keep that, but I am going to constrain my rotation so that my bird doesn't rotate randomly. So I'm going to hit play and make sure my bird falls down. And he does. All right, perfect. All right, in the next video, we're going to get into scripting and, you know what? Let's go ahead and create the bird movement script while we're here. We're only 10 minutes into this video. Okay, so I want to create a new script. I'm going to go over here, and I'm actually going to change this back to 1 column layout. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this scripts. And then inside the scripts folder, I am going to create a new C# script. I'm going to call this bird. Okay. I will go ahead and attach this to my bird object. Okay, wait a second. Give it a second. All right, let's go to my bird. I'll actually attach it this way. All right, scripts, bird. So now the bird script is attached, and I'm going to double click to open it up in Visual Studio. Give it a second. Oh, come on. It's loading on my other screen. I'm just waiting for it to stop loading so I can drag it over. There we go. Nope, that was the wrong thing. That was my cheat sheet. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we have our bird script. I'm going to put my brackets where they go. Okay. Now, obviously, if we have some kind of movement, we want to set a speed variable, a public speed. I'm going to start putting in comments so that it's easy for you guys to see what I'm talking about. Because sometimes I type things out and I try to explain it, and then you're listening, but you're also trying to type and you're not really paying attention to what I'm saying. And it'd be nice to have that comment to go back to see what it was that we wrote. So there's my movement speed variable. This is where I'm going to declare it, public float speed. This is something we've done so far in both games that we've made, and now in this game as well. Alrighty, and of course we want to get components, right? We want the rigid body 2D. And we want to access the velocity of the rigid body 2D. And we're going to set that equal to vector2.right times speed. Now this is an easier movement script than we've had before because our movement in this case, actually does not rely on our doesn't rely on button presses. It's just going to begin moving as soon as the game starts. So we don't even have to get access raw for this one to determine where we're moving or whether or not we're moving. This is just going to move right off the bat. So this is actually a little bit easier. Now if we go back to Unity, we could see that the bird actually flies, but it just drops right to the ground. So let's go ahead and add some ability to make our bird flap its wings and make it go up and do that controlling. So we need to set a new variable called flap force. Basically, how strong is the bird going to be when he flaps his wings? How much is it going to shoot him up into vertical space? So I'm going to set a public float called force, set it equal to 300. Pretty good place to start. We can, adjust that as we go. And then on the update, or in the update method, I'm actually going to create a way for us to flap. Forgot my comment here. Now you guys can write these comments if you want, just to help you remember where, which is which, or where these, what all this stuff does. But it's not necessarily, if you don't feel like doing it, you don't have to. All right, so in the update method, we want to check to see if the space key is pressed. If the space key is pressed, then we want to apply that force value that we just created. So it's pretty easy. If input dot get key down, right? So this is different than a get access raw. This is just checking for a specific key, and we're going to make it keycode dot space. So if the space key is pressed, then I want to get component, right? Rigid body 2D, because I'm accessing the physical part of the object. And instead of doing velocity, I actually want to, let's scroll through here and see if we can find it. I see force. Where is, I'm not seeing it pull up here. Sometimes the method that you're looking for isn't necessarily in this help menu, but that's okay because I know what the method is and I know what I want to apply. Add force. Okay, and it's going to be vector2 dot up times force. Oh, Now we're getting a get component. Let's see. Add force. This is correct. Let's try copying and pasting directly from my cheat sheet. Yeah, why not? All right, well, I don't know what I wrote, but I wrote something weird. But now it looks exactly the same. But whatever, sometimes that happens, I guess. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and attach this script to Unity and then go play the game. And all right, come on. Build, build, build. I want to play Flappy Bird. Hurry up. Okay, let's go back and play our game. Come on. So I can see now. Oh. Let's actually start our bird a little bit higher. Let's bring it up to 5. Yeah, we'll start it higher just so it's easier to see. So now you can see I'm going to the right and I am applying force and I'm gone. And I'm out of the level. We're going to fix that in a little bit. The first thing I want to fix, though, is I want to fix, if we land on the ground, I want the game to restart. So that way we can have, you know, there's some kind of failure condition. We can actually do this in the movement speed or in the bird script. Basically, all we have to do is call on collision enter 2D. Now the cool thing about on collision enter is just anytime it collides with anything, it's going to, we're going to get rid of this private. We don't need to explicitly say it's private. And I'm actually going to shorten the name of this variable just because that's what I like to do. But anyway, the nice thing about on collision enter 2D is essentially what happens is as soon as this object collides with another object in the game world, then we fire off this method. So it's actually really effective. We're going to use it a lot. So on collision enter 2D is a really important method to understand how it works. So in here, we actually only need one statement. Basically, we just application dot load level application dot loaded level. So basically, we're just reloading the level. Now, you're going to get this nice green thing here that says, hey, this is an old way of doing it. There's a new way of doing it, but it still works. So we're just going to use it. So don't worry about the green squigglies here. The other way of doing it is a little bit more complicated. This is pretty easy. So basically, what we're saying is the application, we're going to load level. And what the level we're going to load is application.loaded level, the level that's already loaded. So we're going to attach that to Unity, and then we'll test that out as well. Oh, come. There we go. All right. So notice when I hit the ground, it actually reloads the level for me. It reinserts me to my starting point, and then it reloads the level, which is exactly what I'm looking for. That's perfect. Okay, great. So in the next, we'll actually do that next. In the next video, we're going to create a camera follow script so that the camera follows our bird, and so we don't fly off the edge of the level there. And then maybe we might get to adding the obstacles. But either way, We'll do that in the next video. Thank you for paying attention, and I will see you next time.